All right, there you have it. Gibson's report from Yola. Mr. Terungwa, if you can hear me now, while the government and, of course, Nigerians continue to contend with this situation, which has now converted into an emergency situation, one would say that a lot of us are looking away from the consequences, or do I say the direct cause of this, of course, and which is the changing climate situation across the globe. Perhaps you can speak to us on that.
Yes, so watching this news, this clip by the correspondent in Adamawa State, really feels very sad. It's very sad, literally because we were warned. We knew this was coming. And we did nothing to prepare for it. And the bad news is that this will not stop. This will continue. It has become a yearly occurrence now. And for a fact, it is climate change. It is not just in Nigeria. The people of Sudan are facing a similar situation, and all around the world. So it clearly shows you that the climate has changed. It is not changing anymore. The climate has changed, and we too must change in our approach to doing things. It is not just enough to give out warnings, which majorly are given in Abuja. I would say NEMA would give out these warnings, but if you speak to the local people, I'm here in Yola in Adamawa State, they are not even aware of the circumstances. The government of Adamawa State issued a warning for people to leave the lowland areas. When is the warning coming? When the floods are already here. And when you say people should evacuate, you are talking of just the individuals. You're not looking at their livelihoods, which is attached to the land, to the, and all. So their farmlands are left behind. Everything is swallowed up, and all. So it's really sad that we don't seem to be prepared for this. The warnings have been there, starting from the 2012 flood, all the way to the 2022. Last year, the same thing. And I tell you that next year, it will be, the same situation. So it is for us to actually prepare. Let's not just, ignore the warnings and ignore the signs and think that this will go away. This will not go away. And the impact of this on our economy, the impact on security, the impact on employment, the impact on food security is very huge. So it's something we shouldn't just wish that it will go away, but begin to plan on how to respond and respond adequately.
Okay, Mr. David, so we see the government's commitment to global climate change efforts. We saw the president attend COP27 last year. We see the world preparing for COP28 this year. Now, would you say this commitment that's being made on a larger scale by the Nigerian government is basically lip service, if at the end of the day we're having situations such as this that doesn't look so much like they're active to the situation as it deteriorates?
Yes, climate action does not mean traveling around the world and attending conferences. I would rather say that some of the monies used in attending some of these meetings should be used to support communities to build resilience. Yes, climate is not just in Nigeria, it's a global issue, and it is very important that the global community should, come together to fashion a solution to this problem. Yes, meetings will be attended, it is important, but what is more important is action on the ground. We have all those policies, climate action plan, we have a climate change commission, we have a climate change bill, but all of that, but all of that will translate to nothing if there is no proper action on the ground. You saw those videos. Those women, they don't understand what COP is. All they care about is their livelihood is destroyed, their houses are destroyed, their farms are destroyed, and even their lives are at risk. That is what they care about. And that is exactly where our funding should be going to. Not just waiting for international organizations to fund, but what is our government, especially federal, but more so at the state. Right now, the flooding is affecting most of the states in the north as it is. But this water will find its way down south. And in no distant time, you will see that flooding, issues will be reported in the southern part of the country as well, because all of this will flow naturally into the river Niger and the river Benue, and then all will merge at Lokoja and then continue down south. So what are the states government doing? We need to set our priorities right. If we know that climate change will impact democracy, I mean, the last hunger protest shows you that things relating to climate can actually impact democracy. It has happened in other parts of the world, in Niger, in Burkina Faso, in Mali. Climate is making the Sahel very vulnerable, right? And providing a breeding ground for terrorists. So we must take proactive actions instead of building big airports that are not commercially viable. Just imagine using some of those resources and investing in resilience building at communities. What this river that is flooded somewhere there in Adama, that the bridge was cut off. I guess if some dredging was done on that river, it will be able to carry more volume of water. If a proper bridge was constructed, I mean, to stand to resist, the flood waters that will come, not this kind of shanty construction that we do here and there. And you can imagine the impact of all of this on our economy. So yes, we have a lot of these policies, but truly speaking, there is no concrete action on ground. And I must repeat that it goes beyond just traveling and participating at the COP. I know that COP29 is just around the corner in November in Baku, in Azerbaijan, and I know that the government of Nigeria will still have a very large delegation to the COP. But I would just wish that some of these states, some of the funds that will be used, in flying people to Azerbaijan and all of that, can just be used to support communities to build resilience at this stage.
All right, Mr. Terungwa, now we've seen the impact of these flooding disasters on small communities across these flood-prone areas, and like you've predicted, it might only get worse. We've seen the predictions also of agencies such as NISA, such as NIMET as well. But in all of this, how much worse can this get, especially with the nature, of the kind of governments that African nations, some African nations have, Nigeria especially? How bad can this get in terms of the security situation, in terms of the ability of Nigeria to be able to provide and produce food or achieve that food sufficiency that we've been trying to talk about for so long, in terms of the economic implications of all of this?
Yeah, so already we are facing acute food shortages, and now we have to import food, and the country is facing at the moment food inflation. And when these floods come, it takes away farmlands. It's not just the land, but it's also crops. It's the mid-season. It's not even up to harvest yet, especially in the northern part of the country. And farmers in Jigawa, in Adamawa State, they have lost everything. And we are talking of grains. We are talking of what is needed to sustain us as a country. So you know that there is that link of hunger and insecurity, unemployment, and all. So the fact is that we would experience food shortages in 2025 as a result of this flood. But we cannot actually take advantage of the situation. Of course, when there is flooding, it brings in some top soils and alluvial soils, which are very rich in nutrients, and it's actually good for farming. But with farmers no knowledge on what is happening, what really pains me about this is that we knew this was coming. The warnings were there, but no one did anything about it. But at least enlighten these people and educate them to know that, yes, at this time of the year, this is expected. So, evacuate, even before the rains come. I know our people are stubborn as well, but it's also because of the low level of understanding and education of some of these things. So they may not want to move, and sometimes they give all of this to God and all. But the fact is that we did not just do enough. We did not just do enough to alert these communities of the floods that are coming. And more rains are expected. If you check the NIMET predictions, more rains are expected even in this September. The situation will definitely get worse. But the truth about this matter is also that when you look at the issues of food, especially in northern Nigeria, considered poor, by certain statistics, but when you see the level of unemployment that is ravaging the country, and the very few people, farmers, especially the old ones, the young ones are no longer ready to farm, put all their investment and everything goes on. So it means the cycle of poverty will continue, and you're making these people, readily available for recruitment by terrorists, So when we talk of ending insecurity, the kinetic approach is not the only way. There are other ways of supporting and building livelihoods, so that they don't make terrorism attractive to people who can feed themselves and take care of their families.
Yeah.
But when we make them to be very vulnerable to environmental disasters such as this, the funny thing that happened this year is that when there was this dry spell at the beginning of the month, I think the whole of the beginning of August, there was like a 3 weeks dry spell. Farmers were praying for rains. I know some states that farmers gathered and prayed for rains to come. And now when the rains came, flooding. So the situation is really bad. It's really not funny, but
indeed, one would call it a double jeopardy situation.
Yes. You just feel that, look, this is not beyond us. We have the ability to take care of this issue. It's just that we are simply not doing enough.
So, for Nigerians, Mr. Terungwa, what options are there to save themselves for some of those who still have an opportunity, of course? What options are there for them to save themselves from this level of loss?
So, at the moment, what can you really do? First is to save your life. And so it means that if you are within a floodplain area, you should simply evacuate and move to higher grounds, as is been advised. And the warnings need to be more and more specific. We know these areas that get flooded, year in, year out. So people should actually leave those areas, completely, if possible. Going forward, what our farmers need to do for themselves is to begin some very simple steps of building some level of resilience, within their communities. when you see flooding in some places, you see community people come together, build sandbags, get sharp sand, fill up, block some waterways.
Indeed.
That can be, blocked to reduce the level of flow that would damage their crops and farmland. But at this moment, it's really late. So it's just about saving yourself and some of your properties that you can move. So for anything else, we should be thinking of the next season. If they had prepared, water harvesting is one simple way that farmers can actually take advantage of, so that as the floods recede, you still have some water to use for some level of dry season farming, so you don't lose completely.
Indeed.
And these are the things that we don't need to wait for federal government. These are things that communities can do. These are things that local government, when I mention local government,
So, Mr. Tinubu,
what I'm saying.
Let's now talk directly about government's efforts. So we understand that predictions are already there. NIMET, NISA will continue to give them these predictions. But what should they do directly right now to ensure that a lot of Nigerians, as much as possible, who have found themselves in these flood-prone areas, are rescued from impending danger?
Yeah, so at the moment, we should look at emergency response and recovery planning. And that's the responsibility of NEMA, but it's also the responsibility of state emergency management agencies. I think nearly all the states in this country have state emergency management agencies. So there must be the effective response mechanism. When you see the video you shared in Adamawa State and you see young men taking advantage of this to swim and cross people, this should actually be the responsibility of some of these emergency management agencies, instead of people taking advantage of this situation. Shelters should be built for people. When you say people should move to higher ground, the question is, move to where? Where is higher ground? Are they going to sleep in the open? There should be some shelters, that should be made available to make people, even those who don't want to move, when they see it, they will try to move. Then at the moment, we begin to plan for post-flood recovery. That is, we're looking at rebuilding the infrastructure, restoring their livelihood, and improving their resilience for future flooding. So when floods come, you know that one of the first things its impact is water. So all the wells will get polluted, and then people need to have proper clean water,
Indeed.
For them to survive. So these are some of the very first things that some of these communities need. And then you talk of food, and then you talk of shelter, and then you talk of wash, which is basic water, and hygiene, etc. Yes.
All right, David Mike-Terungwa, Africa Regional Coordinator, Citizens Climate International, and also team lead at Gifsep. Thank you so much for your contributions on the developments, especially as it regards flooding in Nigeria and the impact of climate change in Nigeria, across Africa, and of course globally.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, and of course that's it for the discussion segment of Daybreak this morning. We now go